How's that
Might
for
as
the
well.
how's that for the opening soundbite?
Here,
Is that something that's actually happened?
I don't think so.
here we are, boys. 7:30 a.m. Monday morning, live on the Morning Wood Radio podcast with a special guest host today, James IronCowboy. How we doing today, boys?
Amazing. Couldn't be better. Happy to be alive.
Just so we can get an update, I mean, I'm assuming you were just training because you're shoveling down some food. What are you taking down right now?
Yeah, so it's a first form. It's called cake cup. And so it's just some solid protein afterwards, 18 grams of protein, some good carbs. I just finished doing a track workout, and so we did what's called Yassos. So 800-meter repeats. It's a really good predictor of your Ironman pace. We can get into kind of more details about it, but try to do my first workout of the day on an empty stomach, just to kickstart my body into fueling off of its natural stores, and then try to refuel as quickly as I can afterwards. So just got off the track and came to have a chat with you boys.
Just for the hoots of it, what was your pace?
So this morning we were doing about a 6:05 pace for the 800-meter repeats. So I'll break down the Yasso. So what it is basically it's a good indicator of a marathon. So let's say you wanted to do a 3:20 marathon pace. So that's my age group qualifying for Boston. So you take the 3:20 time that you want to do for the full marathon, and that's what you do the 800-meter repeat in. So 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yep.
It's 800-meter, which is half a mile. You times that by 2, 3:20. That's a 6:40 pace. So if you can do 10 by 800 meters at a 6:40 pace with a 400-meter rest interval, and you're doing your other training appropriately, that's an indicator that you can run a 3:20 marathon.
Oh,
so they're called Yasso repeats, YASSO.
So the first thing that we like to ask people is what gets you up in the morning. Our podcast is Morning Wood Radio, and it's all about that morning energy. That's like, what's the first thought and the real energy behind your day when you get up? And I just want to know, for somebody like you who's so accomplished, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I get up every day. I love sleeping. No, just kidding. But for me, my very first morning routine thing that I do is I think in life the secret to success is gratitude. And so for me, like my alarm goes off and I like swear multiple times, and then I put both feet on the ground. And the first thing is I think of a couple things that I'm grateful for. And I just put both feet on the ground and I just say, I'm so filled with gratitude today that I get to do it one more time. I just had, tragic story. I've got 5 kids. My youngest is 13. And it's summertime here in Utah, so the kids are all out of school, but there's camps for sports in the summertime with universities and whatnot. And they were running across country just on this trail just above our house, and a 13-year-old kid just dropped dead. Had a heart condition of some kind. I don't think it was heat stroke. It was early morning, so the temperatures are mid 70s, so not too bad. The actual report hasn't come out yet. It just happened on Saturday. And so anybody that's listening to this, like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. And so to wake up and to wake up with a piss poor attitude or not be grateful that we get to do this one more time, regardless of your circumstances, right? And there's always outliers, and we can get into it. I just watched the new movie Sound of Freedom about sex trafficking. It's incredible. You have to go watch it. But really, tragedy is all around us. And if you're living we live in the United States of America, most people that are probably listening to this, but we are so fortunate, so blessed, and yet we're focusing on just the stupidest things that are derailing us and sidetracking us. And so I wake up every morning and the first thing, it's gratitude. It's gratitude for breath. It's gratitude for a heartbeat. It's gratitude for fresh air. It's gratitude for freedom. We just came off of the 4th of July. And so for me, every single morning, it's like, today's going to be amazing. I get to do it one more time.
Interesting. Well, there's so many things you just got into my head. I understand the gratitude thing, and I've definitely become more appreciative of that. I actually bought myself a gratitude journal when I was over in Europe, and I was like, I got to get better at announcing this. Like, I got to make sure I reaffirm all of these things. So, I mean, you got me all mixed up because I've got so many questions for you, but really, I was going to ask, what has still got you doing this? Are you packed full of demons that people don't know about? There's got to be something.
Dude, I love this question. I love this question because you take a look at someone like David Goggins, who's like pissed off at the world and yelling at everybody. And, it's like, he's just angry. Like, I don't understand the dude.
I know, I can tell. You can read it through his book. It like pours out of the pages.
Like, I'm just like, why are you so upset? Like, you're alive. You're like, dude, he's just so angry. And he's running from something, right? Like, he's got some demons that he's trying to get away from. And I don't know David. I don't have any beef with David. But it's like, it's clear he's running away from something. And I'm the exact opposite. I'm sure you've heard of Ed Milet.
What's that?
Do you know who Ed Milet is?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Tell us all about
Ed Milet. Ed Milet's amazing. He's got an unbelievable podcast. He's a massive multi-millionaire. He wrote a book called Max Out and one more. You got to look Ed up. Anyway, he talks about the biggest regret you're going to have in life is when you get to the finish line and you meet the best version of yourself. And you either equal that person or you fell short. And so what gets me up every single day is I'm not the best version of me yet. And I'm a work in progress. And so every single day I'm waking up and trying to be a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I don't know what the ultimate version of me looks like because it's an ever moving scale. A buddy of mine asked me the other day, we were on a long bike ride, and he's like, hey man, I was thinking about this concept we talked about. And how do I know what the ultimate version of myself is? And I said, we don't know. That's the beauty of it. Because if you're showing up on your journey every single day, it's a moving target. Because the ultimate version of me today is a little bit better every single day. And so my goal every day is to wake up every single day and to just a little bit better. A little bit better, because when I get to the end and I meet this dude, I want to have no regrets. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we made it. We did it. I met you. I caught you.
You're truly living the life of like Groundhog's Day though, through Ironmans. I mean, you have literally, how many Ironmans have you like accrued at this point?
193.
So 193. And that's insane. I don't even know, like I've done obstacle course races and a ton of other races, and I don't even know if I've added that up to that number. And most of these races are like 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously like you've said that you're not running from any demons, but you're kind of living that life of Sisyphus where you're continually pushing that stone to the top of the mountain. And I'm sure that you're learning a different lesson every single time. Like to the average man, they're just thinking it's a dude pushing a stone to the top of the mountain and then restarting every single day. But there has to be something inside of you at this point that is continuing to push you. And you're saying that you're trying to find the best version of yourself. But at what points, like, you did the 100 Ironmans, then you decided to do 101. You did the 50-50-50. At what point do you recognize, because I challenge myself with this all the time, where you've squeezed that lemon so much that the juice isn't coming out anymore? And I don't know if that I mean, for you, you're 47, you're 13 years older than me. And it's and you're training for the, what is it? The Norseman coming up. We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
Where do you continue to get that energy from and that meaning from? Like energy, I guess you got. Where's the meaning come from at this point? Because you've done a lot of these things.
Yeah. I'll probably never do like a standard Ironman again. Like I've filled that bucket. I've crossed that finish line. I've experienced that. And for me, there's just so many different categories in life. And there's so many different amazing, cool experiences and races and things to do. Like in September, we're going to Sweden and we're doing the world championships, what's called a swim run race. And the race is called
I did that race.
And in Sweden?
Yeah. I did it back in 2015.
Okay. Yeah. So
world championship.
It's a lot of fun.
Ootaloo. Yeah. And so we did the one in Catalina Island right before the pandemic hit. And so we've been waiting. And then I had ankle surgery, so I've delayed it a couple of years. But we're super pumped, so we're going to go do the Ootaloo is what it's actually called, but the Americans call it Otillo. So we're going to do that in September. But it's just about doing different things that challenge you, and it's interesting because people from the outside looking in is going to be like, oh, okay, you always have to up the level of what you're doing, and it's not a matter of upping the level; it's a matter of like, the benchmark has changed because you've evolved it as a person. And when you're standing on the top of said mountain, all of a sudden you can see a new mountain you couldn't see before. And that's the next natural step. But to the newest member of the person that's watching your journey, they're like, whoa, that's a big leap from where I am. Right. But not for, but everybody's on their own journey and a trajectory. So, I get asked all the time, are you going to do 150? Are you going to do 200? And I'm like, no, I am totally satisfied. And I always have to ask myself a series of questions when I'm going to do something, right? What's the sacrifice it's going to take in order to accomplish it? And then what's the uptick or the benefit to doing it? And could I do 150 Ironmans? 100%. There's no doubt in my mind I could do it. I could do 200. I don't want to sacrifice what it's going to take to do that. I'm in a very different place in my life. I've got 5 kids, four teenage girls. One of them just told me they're getting married in January. I mean, so much is happening in my life. I'm really building my business side. I've now shifted my focus to helping other people achieve whatever mountaintop they're trying to get to.
So that was what I was going to ask. Like, so I mean, there eventually is going to be this growth standpoint where, you know, you just can't be in the same light and expect the same kind of growth. Something has to shift. And, you know, you obviously have done so many of these races. Like, I'm probably in the end of my career. I've been racing professionally for 12 years and I've done everything you could possibly do in this sport. And I continue to do things like, you know, on the outside of my professional level, you can go doing things like your race coming up just to challenge myself and have that feeling. But for me, I understand that I have to now look into the future and I'm like, there has to be another version of myself where I'm going to continue to level up because I've really maxed out this plane. And you mentioned business. And I was going to ask about that because like I try to explain to people that my flights alone every single year range about $40,000 to $50,000 travel budget. And it's crazy the amount that we have to travel. For you, particularly, to I imagine managing that 50-50-50 thing, it's enormous. So how does somebody like you, first of all, survive through this? Because you're not a professional triathlete. You seem to be kind of that journeyman who's doing things that are kind of beyond the finish line time. It's more of the experience and inspiration, the frontier of human limits. How have you been able to manage that and create this lifestyle for yourself? Because it's obviously not cheap. Like I'm trying just to afford going to your race and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm getting the bike, I'm getting the race ticket, I'm getting the travel. We've got the camera guys coming. We got all this, the food. I'm like, holy crap. And I tried to do the numbers on what you were doing and it's like unfathomable. It's crazy.
Were there a lot of sponsors that you had for 50-50-50?
Yeah, very
self-funded a lot just at the start.
Very, very few self-funded. And it's interesting, you know, because when I started, I mean, I'm a little bit older. When I started, I mean, there wasn't social media like it is today. I don't even know if you guys like Twitter had something called Periscope. You know, that was the first.
That is.
Yeah. I mean, most people watching this don't know what Periscope is, but that was the first very live streaming platform that existed on Twitter. And I mean, that's where we were when we were doing the 50 and the previous world records, but nobody was following my journey early on when I was fast. I mean, I've done the world championships. I've been to Kona. I've won full distance triathlons. I've podiumed at a lot of these races. And like my fastest Olympic is an hour 56. I've gone 4:30s for a half. And so, but people didn't tune into our story until much later when I got a little bit older and turned into the journeyman and started to push boundaries for myself, human potential, mentally and physically. And then it was just a really cool opportunity to tie it to a charity and raise money. But we self-funded. Nobody believes in you at the beginning, right? Nobody. And every
That's
time
a big undertaking to self-fund that.
Well, it was, and that's the thing is, you know, we live in an interesting time and everybody is just putting out their hand and saying, give me, because I want to do this. Yeah. And I laugh because I'm like, nobody's giving you shit. Like unless you're a mummy blogger or Dwayne Johnson, like suck it. You're not getting anything. Like join the masses that want to have someone else fund their adventure. And most people aren't willing to sacrifice what it takes. And like, as we're leading up to the 50, I understood, like, we're not getting sponsors. Like nobody, it's so big at the time. Nobody was, in fact, the words they said to me was, we can't afford to associate ourselves with a failure. And I'm like, dude, I just broke 2 world records. I'm not a failure. Like, yeah, but this is too big. You can't do it. And so we were like, okay, nobody's going to believe in us. We're going to have to do this ourselves. And what happened was we found an opportunity to where we traded care for an elderly woman who had Alzheimer's in exchange for rent and utilities and living costs. And we took all of that money that we would have paid for rent over 2 years that we cared for the woman and put it into a savings account to do this project. And so we were willing to make those sacrifices. And I knew at the time, like I'm nobody. I'm still nobody. And so like, why am I putting my hand out? Why do I deserve it more than anybody else? I haven't done anything, even though I'd broken a couple world records. But and that's the problem, is everybody's saying I'm a big deal. Give me. And it's like, no, no, no. What value are you bringing to the table? And so over a decade, I would shout out sponsors and play the game of products that I actually used. And then I did an ask when we did the 100. And so we self-funded everything leading up to it. In fact, we self-funded it all. And when we asked the public, it was all donation monies that went to the charity.
Wow.
And were you flying when you first started out? You for logistic purposes, you had to hit Hawaii and Alaska first. Were you flying your kids, all 5 of them, on these flights at the start, and then you hit the travel bus? But at the start, was it everyone flying and traveling together for those first 2 states?
Yeah. So in 2012, we broke the world record for the most official Ironmans, and it was 30 Ironmans through 11 countries. And again, we didn't have any money. We had just lost everything in the '08 recession. I was a mortgage broker. We were broke, and that's what shifted me into doing this thing. And again, I got creative. I would go to, because people right now, they're like, hey, can I get $50,000 to fund this project? And I'm like, nobody's giving me 50 grand. And so I would go to friends and individuals and say, look, I need, because I was going to 11 countries, and I was like, okay, look, will you sponsor this one race entry fee? $450. Yeah, for sure. We'll do that. We'll be part of this journey for you. And then I was like, I go to another person. Hey, I understand you have a business. Would it be okay if I used a little bit of your corporate air miles to book this flight? And so for years, I was just planning and planning and planning.
You're a hustler, baby.
I was just a straight hustler. It was a grind, just to make that dream happen. Because again, I knew no one's going to pony up 50K on someone who's unproven, who hasn't done anything yet. And you've got to build that repertoire, and you have to be willing to do what it takes. And then fast forward to the 50. Yeah, my kids were with me the whole time. So all 7 of us on a plane to Hawaii did the first one. All 7 of us on an airplane to Alaska did number 2. All 7 of us on a plane to Washington, where the 2 wingmen met us, Casey and Aaron, with the motorhome. And then we caravan the rest of the lower 48.
It seems like the one thing that keeps on coming up is family. And I had this in my notes. So it's got to be a very selfish lifestyle that you're living, because it seems that your entire family is kind of following the tip of the spear, which is your journey. So how are you able to find balance and also create a family where everybody was really bought in? Because what you're doing is very exciting, but you got to understand what you're doing is so above and beyond the average family's asks. You have to keep the camaraderie. You got to keep the positivity. And it sounds like they love you and support you and everything like that. But there's got to be that fulcrum point where it's looking to break. How do you also keep yourself together and keep this family together?
Yeah, great question. And kids are products of their environments, and they really don't know any different. And, initially we'd get that question, like, you're selfish and you're dragging your kids through this. Let me ask you this. When you were 8 years old and you're on your summer vacation from school, how badass would it be to go visit 50 states in 50 days in a motor home, doing whatever you want every single day?
Yeah.
You think my kids hated that? They got to go back to school the next year, and everybody said, what did you do for summer vacation? We went to all 50 states, man. We had a blast. And these other kids are like, I don't know, I just jumped on a trampoline in my backyard, And
but
so
I go hang out with my family, and we literally wake up in the morning. No offense to my family, but this is their routine, and I'm going to try to compare it to yours. We wake up in the morning and everybody has a cup of coffee and sits around the table, and the kids just run in circles like their heads are exploding. And then we have coffee, biscuits. Then we go to breakfast, and then we come back and everyone lounges. It's very blah. You have to hit this in a militant level schedule. Otherwise it's unmanageable for you. It's get you up, get you ready, eat you.
I have a world-class wife. And during the 50, and you got to understand too, my wife's an athlete. And so we were doing this lifestyle together, and we would train together and whatnot. And my kids were really little at the time. They were 5 to 12. And so they were just they loved the racing side of stuff. It was all adventures to them. And they would get to go swim in lakes and pool. I mean, they literally loved it. I mean, even if you ask my kids today, those are incredible fond memories for them. And then when we did the 100, fast forward a little bit, my daughter ran the entire campaign. This is something they're all in on. And the reality is when you're doing something, it's not as long as you communicate what the sacrifice and the reward's going to be, And sacrifice is always a short-term thing, and life gets out of balance in those things. But if you think for 1 second that my kids don't believe that they had a part in our success and the lifestyle that they're living now, they understand sacrifice. They understand hard work. They understand team unity and family. Like those were invaluable lessons to my kids. I'm not worried about my kids at all. They're going into the real world right now, and they are miles ahead of their peers. And it's because of the lessons that they learned on these journeys and being part of it. We got compliments every single day on the 50. I can't believe your kids are 10, 11, and they'll look at in our faces when they're having a conversation with us. Go try to have a conversation with a 12-year-old today. They won't look at you.
They look
They're
down at their
nervous.
feet.
They're panicked. They're nervous. They look away. They're twitchy. They need their phone in front of their faces. Dude, my kids were running a campaign. They were selling shirts. They were pumped. They were cheerleaders. They were part of it. They were raising money for charity. You talk about an invaluable skill set at a young age, and building confidence and being able to talk to adults and running this type of campaign. Dude, they were part of the team. They loved it. They thrived. Every single one of my kids from 5 to 12, and now they're 13 to 21. They're unbelievable kids. And I attribute it to the journey that we've been on as a family together. They learned so many skills.
It's awesome, dude.
Wow.
I literally am. I live in a world of excuses, not my personal self, but I'm so used to just having conversations with people that are telling me, like, so we all start in sports, and I'm sure you had your pack of bros that you started with. And then there's the people maybe a little bit older, and then they age out and start having kids and things like that. And they've transformed. And I asked them, like, what's going on? And there's just this, basically an avalanche of excuses that prevent them from doing what they need to do because they're slaves to their kids and so on and so forth. And when I hear somebody like you mention that, it's a bright future for me, because I plan on having a big family and having an awesome time with it. But I'm such a physical person. Like every single hour of the day is moving, and we're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. I still want to compete, or at least be physical and bring my kids into it. But the average conversation I have with my friends and the kids is they're completely dominated by a thing that's 2 feet tall and weighs 30 pounds. It's mind blowing, but
kids are product of their environments, and because you're active, you're going to set the ultimate example, and your kids are going to thrive. And all of a sudden, you're going to start to see the gap separate between your kids and other kids that don't do that kind of thing. All my kids have done 75 hard. I have a huge gym on my property here. All my kids every day go do a workout. My son will play some NBA 2K, and he'll be like, I just won that game, and then he'll go out and he'll shoot hoops for 2 hours. It's just kids are products of their environment. Like I've never told my kids, hey, put your phone down. Because they watch mom and dad be active. They watch us be healthy. They watch us be happy, and they can see the difference between, kids contrast. Kids are watching you every single day. Everybody that's listening to this, like, you're a hero in somebody else's story. And so you're either going to continue to be the hero, or you're going to be letting people down left and right. And that's a choice that you get to make every single day.
So James, on those times, obviously you have to spend the most amount of time on your bike. So for those times where it's like dad needs to go do a 4-hour bike session involving the kids, it sounds like they aren't going off and doing their own thing. They might join you for that 4-hour bike ride. So is that the distinguishing factor of like, hey, we don't ever see dad because he's always training, and you've kind of morphed that into, yeah, I'm always training, but you're welcome to hop on a bike right next to me, and then you can get that, father kid time.
Yeah, most times my kids aren't training with me because they can't go at the intensity or volume that I am. I'm obviously a grown man and their kids. Yeah. But yeah, if I'm doing a session in the gym, 100%, they're in the yard, they're doing a thing, they'll be on treadmill beside me, they'll be doing whatever at their own pace. But like in terms of let's say putting in a 6-hour bike session or leading up to the 50 and the 100, I was doing 35-hour weeks, but I still had to make money, right? And so you get to choose where you put your time, where you put your attention. And, you hear a lot of people talk about, family life balance and work and hobby balance and all these different things. Balance doesn't mean 33% in each of the categories. I've got teenage girls right now. Do you think they want 33% of my time? Hell no. They want 3% of my time, but they want 100% of my attention during those 3 minutes, or 3%, right? And so as we're leading up to the 100, Pacha, stop it. As we're leading up to the 100 and these big campaigns, I coach athletes around the world. Well, I can do it in my bed at night as I'm writing programs and doing video conferences and whatnot. And then when my kids are at school or playing, that's when I'm training. It's no different than a regular job where the dad goes away or the mom goes away and works 8 hours and then comes home, or the kids go to school and you come back. I'm probably home and with my kids more than a, a full-time working male or female, mom or dad. And it's because I prioritize my time. I'm okay working when they're sleeping because I'm an entrepreneur. I can do stuff at any hours of the day. And so I prioritize my time so that I can be with my family when I need to be with them. But again, they don't want an equal pie of my time. They want my attention and 100% of it when I'm with them. And that's hard for everybody to be present, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Your brain's always like, tick, 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 always going, right?
Just being back on the East
It's not an
Coast.
equal pie.
Yeah. Just being back on the East Coast and spending time with my family who are all in traditional jobs. Like they get up and they're gone at 7 a.m. and they don't get back until 7 p.m. And I was
Exactly.
like, that's got to be a really tough way to raise a family. And I'm talking about like both sides, like the woman and the man, they're both out. And I was just left on the couch and I was like, where's dad and mom? I was like, help. So
like it's a Monday morning, it's 9 a.m. and I'm at home just chilling. I got up early, I did my workout, my kids were sleeping. And guess what? As soon as this call's over, I'm going to go in, I'm going to make them a late breakfast and take them to church camp this week. Like they're stoked. Like I'm home all the time.
Can I ask you, it's just off topic. Why did you quit Canada?
Ah, dude, it's freezing cold up there. Take a look in the background. Take a look at the background,
I know,
bro.
but you could be in Banff right now. You could probably be in Calgary.
Dude,
like that's kind of like the Utah.
I'm Canada through and through. And my grandma lived in British Columbia. I spent every summer there. It was in the Okanagan Valley. And so I tell the story from stage all the time. I do about 60 events a year, but I grew up in Calgary. Calgary's world famous for the Calgary Stampede, which is the largest rodeo in the world. It's amazing. It's rides, it's concerts, it's chuck wagon races, it's food. And I was in my early 20s and the radio show announced a contest. And they said, we want to find out who can ride the giant Ferris wheel for all 10 days of the Calgary Stampede.
Oh my
God.
God.
So I was like, I grew up a wrestler. I'm mentally tough. I'm comfortable just sitting in silence. So I got on the ride and I rode the Ferris wheel for 10 days. I won a bunch of money. I got fired from my job and I hitchhiked a ride to Utah to visit one friend I had here from a church mission that I served in Paris. And so I came to visit him and I looked around and I was like, damn, this is unbelievable. I didn't realize like places like this existed in the world. And I'm like, is it beautiful like this all year round? I'm like, oh, well, we've got 4 amazing seasons. I didn't end up going home. I met my wife. I've been here for 23 years, been married 22 years, 5 kids. I absolutely love it.
What part of Utah are you in?
So just south of Salt Lake City in the valley, Utah Valley. So I live in a little town called Linden, a little town of about 11,000 people. Park City's 45 minutes from my house. Salt Lake City's 45 minutes the other direction. Big mountain range, Rocky Mountains in between us.
Yeah, is that a mountain right behind your head?
Yeah, 14,000 footer. It's called Mount Timpanogos. It's the world's greatest training grounds. I live at 4,500 feet above sea level. I can ride my bike over 10,000 feet. You're going to experience the altitude. It's going to be 95 to 100 degrees that day when you come to our race.
95 to 100?
Uh-huh.
Fuck. Okay. So let's talk about business and then really get into this race because, eventually you probably have to make the decision. You're like, I can't just keep on riding bikes in circles and swimming and so on and so forth. Like this is not going to pay the bills. So how does somebody
100%.
like take your lifestyle and now all of a sudden create opportunity that's going to create a sound future for yourself and your family? Like what was that conversation? Where did you recognize you're like, I'm going to have to figure out how to build this thing up?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I mean, I remember as a kid throwing newspapers and shoveling walks in Canada. And I was just, I've always been a hustler. I've actually probably never had a conventional job other than like a minimum wage job as a kid.
You say shoveling rocks?
Snow,
like
sorry.
Oh, snow.
Snow, shoveling snow. I said walks.
Oh,
walkways in front of houses. Yeah, my dad got me a job as like an 8-year-old that abandoned houses in Calgary. The city needed someone to maintain those sidewalks. And so my dad I had 3 sisters. He bought us all these little tiny red shovels and he would drive us from house to house and we get paid like $5 a house or something. He probably took the rest of it. And we would literally shuck snow. And then I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning in the dead of winter and throwing newspapers. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Came down to the States and started a mortgage company. Obviously, the economic crash in 2008. I was big into triathlon at the time, loved the community. I was winning races and started a coaching business. And this whole thing started was because I was like, I have to figure out a way to, I'm not the fastest, And so I have to figure out a way how to separate myself from some of the competition so I can grow my business. And so I ended up breaking the world record for the most half Ironmans in a year. We did 22 half Ironmans in 30 weeks. That led to the full Ironman world record. And then my coaching platform started to grow. And as an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, this is great. This is turning into a way to support my family. And I don't have to be the fastest. I can just continue to kind of be this really pioneer type person of pushing the mind and the body. And it just took us on an amazing journey. The 50-50 happened, and then the Conquer 100. And right after the 50, I got started to get invites to speak on corporate stages. And this is not something I planned to do. I never thought I'd be an author. We wrote our first book called Redefine Impossible. We wrote it in 2017. We've sold over 100,000 copies. And we just signed a major publishing deal with St. Martin's, and our book called Iron Hope is coming out next year. The manuscript's due in January. But my main income comes from speaking. I've spoken in 50 countries around the world. I do 60 to 80 events a year.
60 to 80 events a year. So you're doing these once or twice a week.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to look at it as quarters, right? So we're really busy first quarter, third quarter. I mean, I did 14 events in January. And so like I was gone the whole month of January, but I don't have any events in June, July, and only a few in August. Because when school's out, companies aren't throwing big corporate retreats and things like that because they're home with their kids. And so for me, I'm really busy first quarter, a little bit into second quarter, third quarter's light. Third quarter's busy again. Fourth quarter is off. So I love it because it's summer's off, it's Christmas off, and I'm really busy the rest of the year. I'm getting the rest of those things in. But I mean, you name it, I spoke for the company, like Nike, Dell, Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, Chase. I mean, I've just had an amazing career professionally speaking for 10 years, and I absolutely love it. And it's just, I pinch myself every single day. When I talk about waking up with gratitude, like I've built the life of my dreams. We've created $1 million brand out of nothing. And it's just been an unbelievable journey. I'm truly an entrepreneur living the American dream at the highest level.
That's awesome, dude. So
your mom was an entrepreneur, right?
What's that?
Your mom, speaking of family, like your mom was entrepreneur or entrepreneur.
So yeah, so it was interesting. I grew up in a very loving household. My mom was a dreamer and an entrepreneur. My grandma actually was an incredibly successful network marketer. She started with a company in the 70s called Nature Sunshine. It was an herbal company. She was packing capsicum pills in the basement of the founder in Eastern Canada. And she immigrated from Ukraine. And she truly built the American dream. And my dad was a blue collar firefighter, hardworking, like he's risk adverse. Like you work 40 years, you take your pension, you retire, and you take no risks. And so I got a front row seat to both of those experiences, to watching that happen. And so I got like my really work ethic from my dad, and watching him just like get up, grind. I don't make excuses. This is what you have to do to provide. And then I watched my grandmother, who was like this entrepreneur and that created wealth. And I was like, man, if I could take both of those, what could be possible? And I've created it. And I mean, I've had a 7-figure day, and I never thought that growing up with a blue collar family that would be my reality. Like I wake up every single day and I'm like, is this really my life? Like this is what I get to do today? Like this is crazy. But don't look at that headline. Look at the 2 decades of sacrifice and hard work.
So a lot of people don't get
no
get rich quick mentality.
Dude, it doesn't exist, man. That's the biggest lie being told to this generation today. There ain't no get rich quick. There's no magic bullet. There's no secret pill. The only way is showing up, hard work, and putting in the time.
I literally have been competing for 12 years, and they've always had these like peaks. And I was like, oh shoot, it's going to pop. This is going to be the big one. And then it just disappears. And then the next one, and then it just disappears, and it just never popped. And I was literally ready.
What do you mean by pop?
I mean, pop, like all of a sudden, like, let's just say you did one project and nobody really cared about the 50, and all of a sudden, like when you finished it, that was the thing that trajected you into the next level. Now, all of a sudden you're public speaking, you're doing all of these things. So let's just say you did those 30 half Ironmans. Everyone's like, yeah, it's cool, but whatever. And you're like, this is going to be the one. It just didn't happen. Then the next project, this is going to be the one. And it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like I have been the champion of so many different sports and television shows, and it just never happened. And I was ready to quit last year. And I did. I retired. I was like, guys, I'm done. And then a couple things happened that pushed me back into the vein of what I'm doing for sport. And my career is stronger than it's ever been. And it happened. 3 bad things happened in a row that just pushed me back into competing again. And since then, the line's been vertical. And I could literally, people would be like, oh, wow, like you've been crushing it for 12 years. I'm like, no, I've been hustling and breaking my body for 12 years. And this is the first time that I'm able to sit down at the table and pour myself a glass of champagne and have like an ice cream scoop sundae type thing.
Yeah. And not worry about the $8 sundae that you're
yeah. And I'm just like,
I love that sentiment, because people are like, oh, man, that's what you get paid an hour to speak. And I'm like, no, I get paid minimum wage. This is back pay for not being paid for 15 years. Like you're not just hearing the story. You're hearing 15 years of wisdom and experience that you're now going to be able to take and apply to your life. Like people don't understand that. And here's the reality. If you're listening, this is my rule number 1. Don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job. You have to have a day job to take care of your needs. And I know if there's some people in this camp and some people in this camp are like, burn all your ships and go all in. And I'm like, yeah, go all in, but don't quit your day job because you have needs. And here's the truth. Here's a cold, hard truth. It's going to take 10 times longer than you think, and it's going to take 10 times the bankroll that you think. And if you quit your day job, you're going to burn through that. And you're going to be in a lot of trouble, because now you're going to have to figure out how to go get a day job. You have to be willing to maintain that, take care of your basic needs, food, shelter, whatever it is, health. You got to take care of those. And at both ends of both candles, you got to be able to burn that wick and build your dream and passion. And here's the reality, another hard, cold truth. You have to have a passion for what you're doing. If you're trying to do this to be an influencer, bullshit. If you're trying to do this to become wealthy, bullshit. You have to do it because you love it. I started doing this because I loved doing it. Being an influencer or all that nonsense, it didn't even exist at the time. I was following a dream and a passion, and I was doing it. As soon as that disappears, shift course, shift path, do something different. But I truly love what I do. I love 6-hour bike rides in the mountain. I love I hate track workouts, but I love doing them because it makes me feel better. It makes me feel accomplished. But trust me, guys, gals, whatever you are, it's going to take you lots longer than you think it's going to be, and it's going to cost you a lot more money. And you just have to keep at it. It's like you just said. I had so many failures, so many downs, and then all of a sudden, boom, because I was consistent, because I was disciplined, everything started to fall into place. And people just see those headlines, right? And they're like, oh, I can do that. I can create that headline. Yeah, you can. After a hell of a long time.
I lost everything the second week of March during COVID. Literally lost all my sponsors, all of my jobs. I was a full-time professional athlete. And it was that moment that I had nothing that I made myself become everything. I took everything back into my control, because everything was dictated by the paychecks that were coming in. If you were like, let's just say all of a sudden your race had a big paycheck on it, I was going there. And let's say you were my sponsor and you wanted me to accomplish a couple things, I was doing all of those things. I was beholden to it completely. And now we built a business where we're completely in the position of F you. And I don't say that to people, but like, I don't have to go anywhere for anybody. I go everywhere because I really want to be there. And
100%.
It's an incredible place to be. I'm sure you're in the same position where there were things in the beginning of your career that you had to do, that you felt that you had to do. And now you're 100% free from it, because it sounds like you've established an incredible base of a business.
100%. I think the greatest moments in my life was, the first one was when we lost everything in the economic crash. I lost my mortgage company. We lost our homes. You remember the day they knock on your home when you're a father of 5 and they take away your vehicles and your home. You remember that day. And I believe that rock bottom was the best moment of my life, because I had no other choice. And people make 2 choices in that moment. They're either going to pity themselves, sit in a corner and cry and spiral, or they're going to stand up and fight every single day to take their life back. And my wife and I linked arms and we said, we don't know what tomorrow is, but we know we're going to be standing up and fighting together. And we rebuilt our own lives. And then in the pandemic, in 48 hours, speaking disappeared, coaching disappeared, because racing disappeared. My entire calendar that was booked solid with $1 million of fees coming in disappeared like that. And again, you have a choice. Am I going to sit down? Am I going to complain? Am I going to create? And I decided to create, and I created an unbelievable online platform to do virtual events. And instantly we pivoted, and I had an amazing year. In fact, aside from the tragedy of COVID, I absolutely loved it. It was a time for me to connect with my family. It was a time to rebrand myself. It was a time to get creative. It was a moment and an opportunity to evolve. In life, at every single moment, you have two choices. Am I going to put my head in the sand, or am I going to adapt and evolve? And everybody has that choice every single day. Look it in the mirror, dead in your own eyes, and say, congratulations, I'm where I am today because of my effort. And if you're losing, that's your damn fault. And if you're winning, that's also your fault. Congratulations.
So you came to this position where obviously you had to adapt, and you're doing virtual races, all of these things. Where did the Starvation Triathlon come in? Because that's really why we're here today. And, you know, I just got my ass kicked this weekend preparing for it. So I really kind of want to find out about the core of why it was born and your purpose behind it and how people could be inspired to get involved.
Yeah. So, you know, my journey started with a 4-mile fun run that I suffered through. And in fact, my wife called me pathetic when I was finished that. And then I went and did a marathon and had a terrible experience and hated running. And I was either going to allow that moment to define me, or I was going to become a better human being. And I chose the better human being route. And I dove into the sport, fell in love with triathlon, and started to build a brand and just a passion and a lifestyle for myself. And after we did the 50-50-50, I was completely satisfied with the challenge. And the only reason the 100 happened was, to make a long story short, the pandemic happened, my calendar got wiped clean. And I always want to, you know, as humans, we should be wired in a way that we always want to do better and learn from our past and erase the mistakes that we've made. That's the purpose of life. And so
burn out that 50, got to put in 100.
And so I made some mistakes on the 50. It wasn't perfect. There was so much chaos, confusion, logistics. I thought I can do that better. And so I said, if I remove chaos and confusion, if I put the right team together that has the experience, could we double what everybody said was impossible? Could we defy logic? And that's why the 100 was born. But between the 150 was business, speaking, and I still wanted to challenge myself, but I was satisfied with the 50 and that limit that I had, you know, put on myself. And so I found the X-Tri series, and the Norseman was always big in the space. It was this iconic race in Norway where they boat you out on a fjord. You jump into the 50-degree water. You only have one option, is to swim 2.4 miles back to shore. You bike over 2 massive mountain ranges, and then you run up to the top of this mountain. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I went and did the Kelpman, the Swiss Man, Alaska Man, and then qualified for Norseman, and then went and did Norseman all in 2017, did 4 of the world's hardest triathlons, all iron distance.
All in the same year?
All in the same year. Yeah. I did back-to-back weeks, Kelpman, Swiss Man, and then 3 weeks later did Alaska Man, and then the week later did Norseman. And so I just continually pushed myself. In that same year, I rode my mountain bike to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro and was the first group to summit 20,000 feet on our bikes. Just had an amazing year in 2017. Did Cape Epic in South Africa the following year. Like, I've done a lot of really amazing, cool stuff where I'm pushing my mind and the body. But this, you know, I've had 2 gentlemen with me my entire career, Casey and Aaron, and they're called the Wingmen. And I'm not the Iron Cowboy. We are the Iron Cowboy. And nothing great is ever accomplished on our own. And they're my homies. They're my brothers. They're my dudes in arms. And we did a TV race.
Are they riding with you, or are they just supporting?
So in the 50, they were supporting because they had to drive. They had to do everything during the day and then drive during the night. And so they were support. During the 100, Casey's a natural runner. So Casey ran all 100 marathons with me, and Casey and Aaron biked all 112 miles every single day with me. So they were my protectors out on there. They're unbelievable human beings. Casey's a 2nd grade school teacher, and Aaron now runs my coaching program. And so these 2 young men are my best friends. And I wanted to create opportunities for them to bless their lives financially and give them a career. So Aaron, he quit his job to come do the 50, and he's been working with me ever since. And so he runs my coaching program. He's the head coach, and that's a great opportunity for him. And Casey has a full-time job as an educator. And so I created this race series to bless him and his family's life. And this is the first year we'll actually be profitable because it's a really hard race. And so
how many years has it been going?
This will be our 3rd year. We had to shut it down during the pandemic year, and then we brought it back. And so this is I've lost money every single year. Not Casey's worry. And so this will be the first year where he's going to get some financial gain from it.
So just to give some context,
but wait, real quick.
Yeah.
So you asked why this race was born. One, it's my give back to the gentleman that has given so much to me, and two, I want people to have an experience. I want people to challenge themselves and feel what I have felt when I push the limits, when I believe I'm broken, and I gain that knowledge that I can take one more step. The number one question I get as I've traveled and spoke around the world: how do I become more mentally tough? And the only way, it's not going to be listening to us have a conversation today. It's not going to be watching you do badass stuff on YouTube. It's not going to be watching our documentary. It's not going to be reading my book. It's not going to be getting yelled at by David Goggins. It's going to be about going out and having an experience, being broken down, and then realizing and having the courage and tenacity to take the next step. And that's why this race was created. It's created to break you down, introduce struggle and adversity into your life, and then you are in the moment where you get to make a choice. You have a decision. Am I going to call for a ride and get picked up? Or am I going to take the next step? Am I going to make that cutoff? Am I going to get all the way to the finish line? And am I going to get over 11,000 feet of elevation? Am I going to climb over 20,000 feet on this journey? Am I going to withstand the dark swim? Am I going to be able to handle 95-degree heat as I climb up from mile 85 to 95 in one of the steepest mountain climbs in Utah? Like, we're going to throw everything at you in this race, and then you are going to answer a question for yourself. Do I have what it takes to continue on, or am I going to quit on the commitment that I made? This race was born and is the gift that I want to give to anybody that has the courage to come out and try it.
Okay, so to give some context on this bad boy,
here, well, you want me to pull up?
Let's break down all the distances, and then I want to really start to break down each and every single one of the movements. So we're going for a 2.4 mile swim, starting at
2.4 mile swim. Yeah, it's about 6,000 feet, 5,700 feet up at it's a little town called Duchesne. The reservoir is called Starvation, which is why the race is called Starvation. Because it's a very challenging race, it's going to take a lot of time to complete it. We start very early. It's an all dark swim. The buoys are lit up. You have a safety buoy with you. And
what's our start time?
I believe this year it's going to be 4 or 4:30. We want to make sure we give everybody enough time to clear the course. And so it's going to be a unique dark swim. We've got safety boats out there for everybody. Everybody's going to have a safety buoy. No worries there. When you get out of the swim, you've got a 100-mile bike ride ahead of you. It's a point-to-point with two pretty significant mountain climbs in it. The first one, you're going to go over a pass called Wolf Creek Pass. You're going to experience this amazing herd of sheep about halfway through. So just be careful. A guy broke his collarbone last year. Nice. And then about mile 80 to mile 90, you hit what's called, there's the sheep right there. You're going to hit what's called Guardsman's Pass. And it's an unbelievable pass that it'd be equivalent to the Pyrenees in the Tour de France, what these guys are doing. Like, it's world class, super challenging. There's a couple pitches that are 24 degrees. It's going to be it's fully exposed. It's going to be during the heat of the day. And that breaks a lot of people just right there. And then you drop down into the beautiful canyons in Utah to the ski resorts. We're world famous for our ski resorts. And then the entire marathon, 26.2 miles, happens on the mountain at the ski resort. Tons of elevation gain. You are going to witness some of the most spectacular views you've ever seen. I believe the bike has close to 10,000 feet of climbing, and then the whole marathon is on the ski resort down on the mountains. It's all climbing. It's all trail. It's one of the most beautiful terrain you'll ever witness.
James, are you allowed to run with climbing sticks?
Yeah, you can have poles for sure.
Would you do poles?
100%. And you, depending on your skill set, you could do the first half to that final cutoff without poles. But I would not do those last 10 miles to where you go to the mountaintop without poles. There's two shirts. We don't do finisher medals and all that other bullshit. You're doing this for the experience and to get one of two shirts, either a black shirt or a white shirt. And there's a cutoff with 10 miles.
If you do it with poles?
No, if you don't make the cutoff to do the top mountain.
It's a
So
cutoff
there,
time, not an equipment
yeah,
requirement.
not an equipment. Everybody can use poles. I would use poles from the cutoff to the finish line. And you're also, I would highly encourage taking a pacer or runner with you on that top part of the mountain. So if you miss the cutoff with 10 miles to go, you have to run down the canyon road back to the finish line. And if you make the cutoff, you're allowed to go up and over where you're going to have an experience, and then drop down to the finish line. And then you get your black shirt and a coin. And that coin means something. If I hand you that coin at the finish line, it means you're a bad man or woman.
James, I got a question on the cutoff. Is because we ran into this. I had friends that ran Leadville in Colorado, and is it the cutoff time from the gun goes off and from that initial start time, and then if you're 100 yards back, you're now 10 minutes into your race, or is it when your shoes cross the finish line is when your start time? Because it was a thing to where if they were going by gun time, my friends didn't make the cutoff, but if they were going by when they crossed the start time and then they could start their watch of race time, they would have made it.
Yeah, great question. This is a mass start. It's a very small field. We cap it at 350. We're only going to have 60 athletes this year. Okay. And so it is gun start because you'll all be in the water. When that gun goes off, you start swimming. And then it is a hard time cutoff. I believe it's 5:30. Sorry, 5:30 is the bike. And then I think it's maybe 8:30. I don't know the exact time. They're on the website. And we're going to do a race meeting this coming week. Casey and I are going to send out a video. It is a hard time. Everybody will have the same start time. It's a mass start. Everyone should be in the water. It's your responsibility to be in the water when the gun goes off. And so watch time and gun time should be the exact same time. There's no, I was in the corral 300 meters back and I screwed up. Everybody is going to be in a line, bobbing in the water. Gun goes off, time starts. Everybody's at the same place.
Cool. All right. So coming from the guru himself, how would you skin the cat on this bad boy? Like how would you coach somebody through this? You got a coaching business. Talk to me here. Cause I've completed one Ironman. I've completed a lot of crazy long distance races. Yeah. I'll admit that this is significantly harder than the Arizona Ironman that I did. And I mean, the climbing alone is insane. The elevation added in is crazy. The heat of the day is even worse. What are we trying to do here? How are we going to coach me through this thing? And we also have a lot of friends who are tuning into this that are also participating. So, you're speaking to a group of about 5-6 guys that need a lot of help, one girl included. Yeah, you've only got 3 weeks from now to the race. And so hopefully you've been training and doing the work. The number one thing you've got to get right is your hydration and your fueling. You've got to nail that. It is hot. You got to know how much fluid you can take in. You got to know what your body can sustain. You got to be taking the right carbs. You got to be taking the right sugars, and you got to be on top of it. If you get to the bottom of Guardsman and you're depleted, like you're in a lot of trouble because the race truly starts at mile 85 of this bike ride. And so in my opinion, in Ironman racing and full distance triathlon racing, the swim's a formality. Hopefully you've done your time, you're comfortable in the water, get out of the water. The bike is about patience. I always laugh because everybody says, oh man, I had an amazing bike ride, but I fell apart on the run. That means you had a shitty bike ride because you didn't pace yourself properly because you pushed too hard. And so you have to be really strong on the bike, dial it back and be patient. And then the race starts with that last 10 miles to go on that run. And so really in terms of training, like you're 3 weeks out, hopefully you've done the work. Hopefully you've put in your big, long training sessions. Hopefully you've done your speed work to get your body being efficient to process lactate. Hopefully you know what your metrics are. Hopefully you know how to pace yourself. This is a legit challenge. Like half the field will not finish, if not more. They won't make the cutoffs or they'll pull themselves out of the race because it's that challenging. You gotta understand how to pace yourself. I'm nervous.
You gotta understand how to hydrate. You should be nervous, man.
Yeah,
you should be nervous. Seasoned athletes don't finish this race that know how to do Ironman. It's arguably the hardest full distance triathlon. It is. It's the hardest one. It's harder than Norseman. It's harder than any of the Keltman, Swissman ones that I've ever done. This is
Have
going
you finished
to be,
this?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm just double checking because the founder
100%.
of Spartan Race, Joe DeSena, has never even done one Spartan race before. I was just making sure that you.
That's embarrassing. Well, I've done it. Aaron's done it. We've all done it. And in fact, the week after, all of us are going to New Norseman. Me, Casey, Aaron,
What was your finishing
and our
time?
female course. We did 14 something.
14 something. So I did a 10:54 or 10:56 Ironman, and I'll admit, like I didn't train for it, and I didn't pace it properly. Like I got off the bike in probably just over 5, and I gunned it, and then I went and did the first 4 miles in 7 something, and then it dropped down to like 12-minute miles. Lots of walking.
Death march the rest of it. Yeah, if you did a 10 something Ironman, when did you do that? How long ago was it?
I did that November. I did that November 2013. Sorry, what am I saying? 2013, 2022.
Oh, so fairly recently. Are you in the equivalent or better shape than you were for that?
Yeah, for sure. I was like in a very much so like off mode period of my season. And like right now, technically I'm in off mode. Like I had our world championships on November. Sorry, why am I keep on getting the wrong months? Okay, May 26th. And I really just like took the time off. I took the past month off, but I was in crazy good shape. And now
you'll clear the course if you're smart and pace it. I would not. I mean, I'd keep an eye on the clock and see where you are in terms of cutoff time. But if you try to hammer this course, where do you live now? Where do you spend most of your time?
I live in Malibu, but I have a cabin up near Big Bear that I do a lot of like elevation training at. So like I'll leave tomorrow and I'm going to go put in 3 days in a row up there, and I'm going to be biking up, up to 7 to 8,000 feet often.
Okay, good. Okay,
I understand the value of the elevation, and I also understand the value of just the altitude. It bites, and I get it. It's a
I've got a pair of athletes that are staying here for 3 weeks from Iceland, because they were like, man, we don't know what that kind of heat feels like, and we certainly know what that kind of elevation feels like. And so they were like, we want to clear this course, and so we're coming 3 weeks early, and we're going to be biking part of the course this week. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff. They were at the track workout this morning. And so, if you're doing this race, like, don't expect to just show up and wing this thing. Like, respect the challenge that's ahead of you. And if you put in the time and work, it's like anything in life. If you put in the time and the work and you respect the process, you can do the course, you can clear it. It's just a matter of being smart, having a game plan and sticking to that game plan, not getting ahead of yourself, just being super patient with that bike ride. Understand that like mile 80 to 90 is probably the hardest ride you'll ever do in your life.
Yeah.
James,
or have ever done to this
I don't
point.
doubt it. Decker Canyon. If I can ever invite you out to Malibu, I'll take you on some of the canyons that have similar Ramblas and Decker Canyon are 20% plus inclines.
Let's go.
Yeah, Malibu is just like this place that's like the mecca for cycling, I think. And I'm sure you feel the same way about your area. I haven't experienced it. So
100%.
let's just say they're both awesome places. I am so lucky that I've had these places to train on my bike, because I've been putting in 10 years of like crazy hard vert. And obviously it's not up to altitude, but at least your legs and your muscle groups get used to that. And that's really, really important. Like my friends that were training down in Texas, they're like, I'm ready for this thing. And I'm like, you don't get it. Once you get up and stomp on a bike ride for 10,000 feet of climbing, it's going to hit muscle groups you didn't even know existed. And
someone just posted, like, I don't know who I'm talking to. Like, you're this crazy skull champion of some kind. I don't know what that is. Dude, I don't care who I'm talking to. I know what this race course is, and I appreciate that, and I respect the man I'm talking to, that he's done the work and that he does respect what he has to it. I'm not saying he can't finish. I'm saying put in the work and prepare yourself. And I've seen a lot of high-level athletes get broken because they don't respect the process and they don't know what they're coming to Utah to experience. I have full confidence that you're going to clear the course. I'm just telling you to be patient and to respect the process.
No, James, the biggest mistake I made, I'll finish this and then you take it. But the biggest mistake I made, so a couple of years ago in 2015, I got this opportunity to travel around the world doing all the hardest endurance races. And I lied on my application. I told them I knew how to do all the stuff. I didn't. And I showed up and I participated and I got dropped on almost all races. The biggest mistake I made for anybody who's listening to this is when you show up to a race of this nature, you're not racing it. Like, that's the wrong word. You are on a journey and you have to respect it like a journey. You have to not be pushing yourself, like trying to get to the finish line faster. You have to learn through yourself and every single step where you're going. And there's micro moments in those times where you have to make decisions on the fly. And I was too immature in the beginning, and I would really just hold red line as far as I could, and I would always crack. And that was like, it was a lesson that I needed to learn. I've been telling my friends, Kyle is watching this right now. He really is like talking about paces and times that he wants to get and all this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, I'm doing everything based on feel. I'm going to hold about 60 to 70% the entire time. And if I feel like I'm kind of going too far, I'll just pull back a little bit. No ego in this thing. Like, I want my shirt. I don't care about a time. Like, if you ask me about my time at the end, I think you misunderstand like what it was like to be out there.
Well, if anybody asks you what your time is, they have no context of what this is supposed to be.
Race it is.
And the reason this entire X-Tri series was bred is because it's not about pushing the masses through a herd line and calling you out by your number. It's about having experience. It's about camaraderie. One of the unique things about our race is like you have to bring your own support person. And the person that watched and supported you train now gets a front row seat to experience the race with you. And that's very unique to our race. And I just saw Ryan ask the question, road bike or tri bike? If you have a good tri bike, you're comfortable with it. If it has disc brakes, because there is a couple tricky descents with some hairpin turns, you will be faster on a tri bike because there is the section from here to Guardsman. There is a mountain climb in the middle, but it is a flat, it's a smooth road. There's no really dangerous hairpins or anything on it. The descent has a couple, but you will gain way more time on those sections than you would gain having a road bike up Guardsman. All the winners of Norseman, all the winners of our race, they're all on tri bikes.
Yeah. Kyle was whooping my ass this weekend on a tri bike. And I was riding on a really nice road bike, but every single time we just got locked into a position where there was like a mile straightaway, he gained 2 to 5 miles an hour on me. It was crazy.
100%. And even if you're just on a tri bike, and I've tested this 1,000 times, if you're just on a tri bike and you're in aero, producing the same amount of power and output, and then you sit up, it's instantly 1 to 2 miles an hour. Same output, same effort, different position, same bike. And so that's magnified even more on a road bike. Now, if I'm just going out, like next week, we're going to go do Guardsman just as a standalone climb, I'm taking my road bike. It's more comfortable. It's better handling. But if I'm racing this race, I'm taking my tri bike. I'm taking my tri bike to Norseman. I'm doing up till yesterday, I was doing all my training on a gravel bike because I just did the Crusher, which is 70 miles with 10,000 feet of climbing in the mountains here. But this week, the next 3 weeks, I'm specifically getting on my tri bike, getting my neck ready, getting the legs position ready, sport specific, and I'll be ready. I'm doing Norseman on a TT.
Yeah, I did it. I didn't train at all on a tri bike. I bought a tri bike and it flew out of the back of my truck on the highway and exploded. So I trained on a road bike the rest of it. And then my buddy Parker lent me a tri bike and I didn't train for it all. And I'm in that position looking up. My back was devastated. I mean, that probably
your neck and your lower back. Yeah, your neck and your lower back. If you don't train, and that's another thing. Like in life, the art of specificity is an amazing thing, and it's a game changer. Like anything you do in your life, if it's business, if it's relationship, if it's family, if it's like doing the specific act that goes towards succeeding in that area is so pivotal, and it's especially in sports. Like you want to be good at this one thing, you have to do that one thing. And I get it that CrossFitters like are they're trying to be good at everything, but like a CrossFitter is never ever going to beat a world champion triathlete because they are so specific at what they do. It's just like I'm not going to beat a pole vaulter at pole vaulting because I don't. Yeah, a CrossFitter is never going to beat him. Yeah, exactly. A track and field athlete, a CrossFitter is not going to come in and beat a track and field athlete that just does pole vault or just does shot put. They're being very specific with what they're trying to the outcome.
So let's geek out for a second here. If you were training right now from this point, you're training for the Norseman. So we'll just
it's 1 week after
some details. Yeah. What are you doing on weekly average? Like what could you just give us like a Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday, whatever it is? Like what are you doing to prepare? Because there's so many different versions of this. And I think you're incredible. You probably are the most validated person on the planet when it comes to doing Ironmans. If you had this period of time right now, let's just say you're taking my body through it or your body through it. What are you doing on a daily basis to get ready for this thing?
Yeah, so I'm 4 weeks out from my race. My next 3 weeks are going to increase in volume a little bit, and then I'm going to do a 1 week taper. Some people need a 2 week taper. I know my body well enough. I can taper down in 1 week.
1 week taper for your boy.
That's right. And so the next 3 weeks for me, next 2 weeks for you are should be big volume weeks. I'm talking 30 plus hours.
Yep.
You should be doing at least your long bike ride should be 6.5 hours, and doing specific intervals in that. So this weekend I'm doing a 6-hour ride, and I'm going to do 4 30-by-minute intervals with 10 minutes in between at a little bit above race pace, probably half Ironman pace. And then I'm going to recover, repeat those, and then I'm going to go off the bike and I'm just going to do a chill 1-hour run. I'm going to do a long run this week, about 16 miles, and I'm going to do intervals in that. I'm going to do 3/4 of a mile at race pace, a 1/4 mile walk recovery. And I'm going to do that I'm going to warm up for a mile, 14 miles of that, and then I'm going to recover for 1 more mile. This morning I did Yasos. I did 8 by half mile repeats at a 6:05, 6:10 pace with a 1 lap in between. So I'm teaching my body to process lactate. Just in terms of like generalities, any good training program should have a speed, a tempo, and a long, and then some recovery days in between. And every triathlete should be doing strength training. Here's the biggest misconception about Ironman racing and endurance racing. Everybody thinks it's a cardiovascular sport. It's not.
It's muscular.
Your cardiovascular. It's muscular. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Most people don't understand that. It's 1,000% muscular endurance. You will never, ever, 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 ever in the history of endurance sports hear anybody worth their salt at the end of the race say, man, I wish I could have gone faster, but my heart rate was so high. No, you wish you could have gone faster, but you couldn't because your legs were so damn heavy, which tells me your limiter is your muscles, which is muscular endurance. I don't train off heart rate. I don't care. Heart rate is a byproduct of my fitness, and it'll maybe influence how I fuel. If I'm in a high rate for a long period of time, I need some fast absorbing quick sugars right now in order to get that going. Everything I do is power and pace, because that's how long. Thank you. And that's because that's how long your muscles, that's the height your muscles can perform over a duration. That's going to be your limiter. It's how much power you can produce over how much time to allow you to run a certain pace over a marathon. That's racing. It has nothing to do with your heart rate. Your heart rate, you just have to manage your heart rate. I hate heart rate training.
Yeah, our sport, I tell everybody, it takes about an hour to do. And I just say if you could get your wattage up and you could prove to me you can get your wattage up, that's the only way you're going to win. And these guys spend so much time doing all of these things and getting their running and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, you got no horsepower. I have 10% more horsepower than you, and that's why you'll always lose. And when I look at people, they come to us all the time and they want to train with our company. And I look at them and I give them a bunch of metrics and they're like, hey, I really want to do this. Hey, I really want to do this. And I was like, I can never help you unless you hit this benchmark right here. And it's always going to be your breaking point. It doesn't matter how polished your bike is. It doesn't matter how cool your shoes are. It doesn't matter what your body fat percentage is. That's why you see people on bikes who are like kind of thick tanks crush these kind of races, because they can just hold wattage on that bike for a long time.
They're diesels. They have a diesel engine and they're fueling off their fat stores. I ask all the people, I'm like, are you working out or are you training with a purpose? They're like, oh, I went and did a 2-hour run today. I'm like, okay, but what did you do during your run and why did you do that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're either training with a purpose or you're doing jazzercise. Like those are the two things you're doing. And if you're doing jazzercise and it's fun, good for you. You're getting to help.
Right, Kyle, you hear this?
But if you're trying to compete and do something, you have to ask yourself every single day, what's the purpose of this workout? Why am I doing this? And that's why you have to do intervals. You have to train at an intensity and then recover so that you're teaching your body to process that lactate. And then when it comes race day, you dial it down. And here's the thing. I laugh so hard. Like I just did this race in the Tusher Mountains. It's called the Crusher and the Tusher. And it's 10,000 feet of climbing with 7,000 feet. And it is a really hard race. And there's a ton of climbing. And everybody cramps in this last col de crush. It's from mile 52 to 60 or 52 to 56. It's a 4-mile climb, 3,000 feet of gain. And it's at the end of the race after you've already done a ton of climbing. And everybody's cramping and falling off their bikes. And they're like, I got my nutrition wrong. And bullshit. Cramping has nothing to do with nutrition. Now, yes, you need electrolytes and everything for your body to function properly and the way that it's supposed to. And yes, you need electrolytes in your system. Take electrolytes, have a very sound nutritional plan. But the reason you're cramping is because you're over exerting, right? Yeah. And your brain, it says, hold on. We need to back this up and I'm going to cramp. I'm going to send a signal to that muscle to cramp so that you'll slow down.
A very easy way to
That's
test this is if you take a chain and you try to pull it apart as hard as you can, doing like a really aggressive isometric, your muscles will cramp up because it's impossible
they'll
for you to
fail.
break the chain. And in about 30 to 60 seconds, your
Yep.
muscles will fail out. Same exact
And
thing.
guess what? You didn't deplete your electrolyte systems in those 30 seconds to get that cramp, right? It's because you were overexerting in the moment. I love that example. Thank you for sharing that. And here's the thing: people take pickle juice. Do you know why pickle juice? Do you know why pickle juice works?
Salt.
Nope.
The electrolytes, the vinegar, the acidity.
You nailed it. So it's not
Yep.
the electrolytes; it's the acetic acid.
Yep.
And you don't have to drink the pickle juice. You just have to swish it around your mouth and spit it out.
Yep.
And it's because it trips the neurological signal that your brain is sending to cramp. It takes about 15 minutes, but you can trip it. And that's why you can buy yourself extra time when you start to cramp and push that same pace a little bit further. But a lot of people get off their bike and they start to walk. You have to grit your teeth and grind through that so that the muscle will go, okay, I'll stop fighting you, and it'll let go. And then if you take the pickle juice, swish it around and spit it out, you'll do it. So I just did the crusher. There's 2 aid stations right before the call to crush and a little bit before it. And both times they had a little cup of pickle juice. And I took it, I swished it around my mouth. I never cramped. I never overexerted. I had an amazing day. And it had nothing to do with the electrolytes that I was taking. It's because I paced the race properly and I was ahead of that neurological signal that's being sent to your body. But Gatorade has done just such an amazing job. Now, hydration, incredibly important. Don't mishear what I'm saying. Electrolytes, insanely important. Nutritional plan, nail it, get it right. But it's not why you're cramping. It's a lack of preparation, and it's the most missed part of training. Every triathlete, every athlete, every human being, you want to live a long, healthy lifestyle, you have to be strength training. Strength, strength, strength.
I think it was Wolfgang Gulick who said this. He was the greatest rock climber until he passed away. He said there's no such thing as technique problems. There's only strength problems.
100%.
I love that quote. I'm like, fuck that rock. I'm just got to get more buffed in it. So
Speaking of times though, Hunter, Rich jumped in here and said, I believe I'm getting that bottle of Lagavulin.
he's talking about the wrong race.
Well, no, you said
We made the bet. We made the bet for
Rich's,
Copenhagen.
No, Rich's prediction for Starvation, 11 hours, 45 minutes, or a do not finish. And Hunter said sub 12 for sure.
No. That's
you think that was Arizona?
I'm talking about Arizona. We didn't make a bet for that. I told him distinctly, I was like, I'm just going to finish this thing because I don't know what the heck's going to happen out there. Every single time I look at the course map, it seems to be worse than the day before. So
if any of your crew breaks 12 hours on my course, I'll pay you $10,000.
No, none of us are. None of us are. I don't think it. I don't even.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it's on the table.
No, listen. I appreciate that. I'll train for next year, and I'll take that $10,000 then.
No, that's this year only.
All right. Damn it. All right. I'm training. So, okay, let's just go into nutrition. Like, I just want to know, like, what are your favorite things that really get you going? You start, and then we'll kind of just banter with it.
Yeah. For me, these long endurance races, I don't take a lot of solids. I'm doing mostly liquid because I'm fueling myself. I'm not satiating myself. And by the end of an Ironman, I feel really hungry because my stomach's mostly empty, but I'm wanting to absorb all of the nutrition that I'm taking. And so I'm willing to feel hungry, knowing that I'm getting fueled. And on our race, I'll be taking a bottle and a half an hour, and probably 30 to 40 carbs an hour. And I'll take it in gel or liquid form for the most part. If I get hungry at a transition, I'll maybe grab a bar or something, but the more solids I take, the more blood it's going to take to break that down, which means the less blood that's going to my legs to process that lactate and bring new healthy oxygenated blood to my muscles. And so I use a lot of First Form product. They have a great product called Ignition, and it's just straight glucose. And it was created for weightlifters and whatnot to replenish yourself after. And I started using it during. And it's just been a game changer. So I do a scoop of Ignition from First Form with an electrolyte component to it, just to make sure that everything's doing. And then I stay on top of my hydration, making sure I'm at least getting those 30 grams per hour carbohydrates. And I just stay on top of that the whole time.
Okay. What kind of shoes are you going to be rocking out there? I think you work with Tier.
So Tier doesn't make a trail shoe.
Would you say trail shoes for this event?
100% trail shoes. You want some lugs on there. I would run in like an ultra lone peak type shoe for sure, or get like a Hoka speed goat shoe, something like that. I would go with a Hoka or an ultra, definitely a trail shoe. You're going to need it. You're going to need
Okay.
those lugs. You're going to need a lot of climbing. I would definitely have poles. You need a hydration pack. You got to be ready. You need a headlamp. You need some medical
So we're
supplies.
gonna be running
I
in the
would
dark at nightement.
100%. If you make, if you're close to that cutoff, you're going to do those last 10 miles in the dark.
What a dream.
You're gonna be swimming in the dark and running in the dark and biking in the heat. Like there's no options.
God, I don't want to fucking do this, but I'm excited. It's
Before you
no, I'm
created
not
this
complaining.
event, were you running these exact distances in these areas, or when creating this event, you're like, all right, you're looking at the map and sectioning out, okay, I think we should do the run here, I think we should do the bike here and the swim here? Or were you doing this kind of on your own, like, hey, I just ran this the other day, that would be cool for an event?
Yeah, so we train a lot here, and I've always wanted to put on a challenge. And we live in a world-class destination, Park City. People come from around the world to mountain bike here, to ski in the summer, to snowmobile. I mean, like to hunt. Like we're just a world-class destination for outdoors. And as I trained and ran around here, I fell in love with the X-Tri series, fell in love with the concept of Norseman, and then partnered with them and became the only U.S. qualifier for Norseman.
Wow.
And they've got some course requirements. It's got to be a point to point. It's got to be on a mountain for the run. And so I was like, man, we've got the perfect location for this. And I train here. I know the terrain. I live here. And so we just started to create the course around their parameters and the terrain that we had. And we've actually had to slowly over the years make tweaks for it because it was too hard. It was too challenging. Most of the field wasn't able to finish the race.
This is watered down from the original.
This is watered down from the original because we had to make the run easier because of how challenging it was. Like Norseman, if you take a look at the Norseman course, the first 16 miles is flat and on road. And then then the next 4 is a road. It's called Zombie Hill, but it's straight up on a windy road. And then the last 6 miles is only on the mountain. Well, we can't do that here. It's a ski resort. It's like canyons. Like everything has to be on the mountain. So initially the whole course was on the mountain. So the last year we changed it. It was really, really well received. The first 4 miles, we actually run down the canyon road and get you warmed up before we pitch you onto the trail, have you do a big loop to where you can see all over Park City. And then our run course actually crosses the top of that bike guardsman pass that you bike. And then that's where the cutoff is. And then you run those last 10 miles up to, I think it gets up to 11,000 feet in elevation before you drop down to the finish line.
What's the cutoff time?
19 hours.
Kyle, you hear that? What's the longest someone's been out on course?
So 2 years ago, we wanted to just test the course. And so we didn't have a cutoff. Casey and I said, we'll be up all night. We're here to welcome every finisher. And we had some guys over 20, 23 hours to do the course.
Wow. That's you, Kyle. Make sure you charge that watch battery.
This year with the cutoff.
Okay, so I mean, I feel actually way better.
Don't go home with a white shirt, Kyle.
Yeah, you hear that, Kyle? Nobody wants to see your white shirt. Cut the sleeves off to make yourself feel tough. So I'll admit, I came into this conversation inspired and excited, and then like midway through the conversation, my ego dumped pretty deep, and then I started to climb out as we started to talk through all this stuff. Because I'll admit, like, I have not prepared. I've lived the life for a long time. So that's the only thing I've got going for me right now.
Well, that is preparation. Like you're a high level athlete. You've done some really hard challenges. And ultimately this comes down to patience, grit, and relying on mental experiences that you can draw upon from your past. And I believe you embody all of that. You've got a lifetime of work, because when you're in that moment and you're broken down, you got to pause and look to your left and go, okay, that's my body of work that I've done. What can I pull from that to get me through this moment? And a lot of people, they look to their left and go, oh shit, I haven't done anything in my life. I'm screwed. They pack it in and they go home. And so that's what you've got going for you. You've got an amazing body of work to your left. And you're just going to have to look at that and go, okay, I need to pull from this experience to get me through this moment. And you're just going to have to do that over and over again until you make it. And I hand you the coin and the black shirt.
So just to give you some context, I went to Texas this weekend and I started at about 200 pounds and I got down to under 185 pounds. I lost that much water weight. We did about 10 hours worth of training, 1 7-hour bike ride, 2 hours on Friday, 7 hours on Saturday, and a 2.5-hour run on Sunday. And there was points where I was like hobbling. I was crawling, putting my hands on my knees and stuff like that. And I was like, ooh, but I got through and I feel like $1,000,000 right now. But in the heat of Austin, Texas, 106 degrees, humbling, very humbling.
Well, I'm also gonna give you a cheat code. When you come to Utah, there's a place right by my house. It's in the valley. It's called Prime IV, and you're gonna want to go in there and you're gonna say, "Give me the Champion IV," and they're gonna load you up and you're gonna feel like $1,000,000. And I promise you, it'll make a difference between that moment that you experience where you're depleted and whatnot to feeling good. It's an amazing thing to do. It's right here in the valley. It'll cost you about $100, and I highly encourage any athlete that's coming in, go visit Prime IV and get yourself lit up right before the race.
Done. So we're probably going to get in. The race is on Saturday. We're going to get in probably on Wednesday. We're going to try to link in up. I know you're tremendously busy, but we're going to try to link up with you at some point beforehand. Here's the crew. We got Kyle, we got Caleb, we got Jordan, we got Austin. I believe we also have Chris Gruglowski now coming. So we have 6 of us coming at least. And, this is a hard knock crew. Kyle's a savage. Caleb, 2 of the guys over 230 pounds. So just so for their sake, they wanted me to ask, what's the heaviest finish year you've ever had?
It would be them.
Dude, that's a big accomplishment. Caleb, come on, brother.
This is not a big dude's course.
Don't say
I'm
that.
probably one of the I'm no, he's just big bone. It's okay. I'm probably one of the biggest dudes that's cleared this course.
Have you had anybody over 200 pounds finish it, you think?
I would say no. Well, the winner of our race last year, his name's Johan. He was from Sweden. He was probably 185, 190.
Okay, I'm coming in at 200. So I would like, if you could just write Bulk Pony across my shirt, because that's my nickname. We'll take that, baby. Dude, I have really had such a good time talking to you. I'm not going to lie. I'm massively impressed by everything you've done. You are incredibly encouraging, and you also have this great attitude, and you got some flow to you. Like when you talk, you can tell it comes from somewhere. It doesn't seem like these are sound bites that you have on a little piece of paper in front of you, like you're pitching something or a book. So I can tell anybody, like, I've watched you from afar for a long time. I'm really glad that we got to connect. You've inspired me without even I don't do what you do, but you've inspired me. And we're coming now into your backyard because we want to encourage other people to come and experience something like this, because it will shift your life. Look at you, dude. You seem to be a bulletproof man as far as I can tell. And it seems like the aura around you of your family, friends, your businesses, it doesn't seem to be so narrow-minded that it's just you. It sounds like it just leaks into everybody else, and everybody's their best version of themselves because of their involvement with you. So thank you so much.
James,
look forward to seeing you.
I was watching the 50-50-50 docu on Amazon, and I was texting Hunter. I was like, well, it got me to a point to look up when the Copenhagen Ironman was, because I was ready to sign up right then. And then it was within a month, and I was like, I can't do that.
Don't put limitations on yourself, Ryan.
Well, we just put, I just texted Casey before this call. If anybody wants to step up to the plate with 3 weeks notice, that would be a ballsy move, but we just reopened registration for you. We'd love to welcome you all and take on the challenge. And I know we've joked a little bit to these guys, but a white shirt is still an amazing accomplishment here to do and to get to that part of the course. It's an amazing experience, and I promise you that just the views and the experience that you're going to have personally with the camaraderie with your support person and the other people racing, it becomes a brotherhood. And that's exactly why we created this race. And so if not this year, next year for sure. Respect the process and train for it, but you won't be disappointed by coming doing a race. I'm excited to welcome you boys. I'm excited to meet you. I know you guys have motivated and encouraged so many other people around the world, and you guys are high level world champions in Class X. And so excited to have you come and tackle Utah and the course that we've created and the experience and that we've wanted to share with people.
So what is the typical, or if you're training for this race and I want to sign up next year, what is the recommended amount of training time of weeks leading up to this? like the training?
Yeah. If you've got a really good base, you understand the fundamentals of swim, bike, run. A really concentrated 20-week effort is going to be good. I'd give yourself a good base, cross training, things like that, and then a good 6 months, and then 20 weeks before, like really dial that in. Specificity, like we talked about. You'll be more than ready for this. We do training plans that we help people with to kind of help them understand what's needed to be done in order to do this. And so it's just, again, you just have to respect the process, do the work, and then it's just a victory lap and an experience at that point.
Should you have a full Ironman under your belt before thinking about signing up for this race, for your race?
Not necessarily, because because if you do your training properly, you're going to cover a lot of those distances prior to. You want to try to simulate climbing on your bike. You want to try to get up into the mountains and do some trail running, things like that. No, this could be your first experience, as long as you prepare properly for it. I don't believe you have to have covered that distance. We had a couple guys last year. They'd never done an Ironman before, and they came in and they cleared the course.
That's a mountain to start on. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time. We took 90 minutes from you. I know you're a busy dude, but go get in shape, dude. You got a big challenge ahead of you. I'm just going to say, it's the World Championships, the X-Tri, so don't be lazy, man. I don't want to hear about no drops.
I do the work, friend.
I'm just kidding. All right, brother, man. It was so great connecting with you. Ryan, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Appreciate it. Sending everybody love.
We'll see
y'all.
y'all.
I'll give you a call, brother. I'll catch up with you guys. See ya.
Later.
See ya.